I am still new to vinyl playback, but it doesn't take long to realise that pretty much everything record playing related will affect the sound that we hear. And I think some of these are really obvious, such as the turntable or maybe the cartridge and the arm. But what about the platter? All it does is go round and around, and its only real job is to support the record. Can the platter have an effect on sound quality? And if so, how much? For those of you who might be new here, my name is Terry Ellis and I have been an audiophile since my teens. I've worked as a professional audio reviewer now for about 5 years, and I also work as a professional Dirac Live calibrator, so I'm around very good sound and very good digital sound all the time. But a personal interest in vinyl playback, I've only really had that since the summer. But don't get me wrong, I've listened to loads of records and vinyl over the years. I've just never really had a system for myself. And I think there's a really big difference in terms of the experience, in terms of just learning about something. You have to have a system for yourself. So I am definitely on a journey. And the whole idea of creating a series of videos about this is to share that journey with you. So hopefully maybe others can, learn from my experiences, definitely learn from my mistakes. And one thing that's been super helpful is the comments that have been left in the last couple of videos that I've made. They've been really helpful to me in terms of learning things, discovering, ways of getting better vinyl sound. But I know there's still a hell of a lot for me to learn, and that means I'm really excited about the future of what sound quality will be achievable in the future. With that intro and explanation out of the way, the turntable I have started my journey with is the AVID HiFi Ingenium Plug and Play, which is really designed more as a record player, as it comes with a tone arm and cartridge pre-installed and set up at the factory. And the whole point of the Ingenium is to give you as much of AVID's turntable design theory and technology for the lowest price that they can offer it. So there is more of the £1,500 it costs going into the turntable itself. The AVID vibration reduction or management system through their clamp and sub-platter system, all through the same ruby bearing that's in their flagship Acutus turntable that costs significantly more. With all of that said, I think the Ingenium really has been designed for the audiophile that just wants something nice and simple. A nice and simple, well-built, all British built, very modern looking record player, so that the audiophile can just put their records on and kick back and enjoy them. But because of greedy audiophiles like me that have been asking AVID for an upgrade path for the Ingenium, well then they have created one. And one of the upgrades is an upgraded platter. And Conrad, who is the owner of AVID, he came here recently to deliver their Evo 4 speakers that you can see there behind me, and also their Sigsum integrated amplifier. Both of these products are here for me to review. And I asked Conrad to bring with him the upgraded platter because I was really interested to experience the difference. What could be the difference that a platter can make? The Ingenium comes with an MDF platter that I have here. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully that'll be in focus and you can see that here. And I think this is a really nice platter. It feels solid. It feels, well built. AVID pre-install. I think it's a cork vinyl mat on the top of it. I don't really know what else to say. It's a platter. It feels well built and just really nice. For me, I'm sure this would do a perfectly good job. But then here is the upgraded platter. And can you see a difference? It's very, very difficult, isn't it, to see a difference. If I turn it around, you might see a difference there with those screws, because that is an important part of the way this particular platter works. But you can't really see too much of a difference, can you? And obviously that is by design, you're not intended to. But trust me, you can feel a difference straight away. Obviously being all metal, it feels completely different. It feels much more dense, but the weight, it's the weight that you notice straight away. And I think the MDF platter weighs about 2 kilograms, whereas the all aluminium or the solid aluminium, all metal platter weighs about 5 kilograms. So it's at least double the weight. And I'm just going to put that down. And I'm sure the experienced vinyl Easters among you will say, yeah, a heavier platter is better. But for me, looking at it as more of a vinyl noob, It almost seems counterintuitive in a sense, because an MDF platter, for me, MDF is a great material. It's used in loads of speakers because it's very obviously hard, and I think it has some absorptive properties, I think maybe MDF. And the fact that it's lighter, to me at least, I thought it could be an advantage because it means less power is needed from the motor to drive that platter around. AVID use AC motors in the Ingenium, and it's my understanding that AC motors have a benefit to their speed stability because they work off of mains frequency. And AVID told me they use high quality motors that have more torque than average. But I think as good as this is, it's still not a perfect solution. So the heavier platter that has more mass obviously takes more to get up to speed, but once it's at the correct speed, its natural inertia means it's much less affected by any slight variations in the speed delivery from the motor. So the rotation speed of the platter is more consistent, and we then don't hear any of the negative effects of the less than absolutely perfect speed delivery from the motor. So that is the theory, but what is the effect for sound quality? And this is an interesting one because I would say it's a huge change. I would say it's about a 90% change for the better, but there is a 10% that you need to pay attention to because the sound changes so much. I think it shows you other things. With the aluminium platter, the change in sound reminded me of, with a digital system, hearing a much lower noise floor. And by that I mean there was a much better, clearer, well-defined soundstage with more space in between each individual element left to right across the soundstage, coupled with a noticeable maybe step back of the soundstage too, so more depth to the soundstage, or just a better, clearer, defined, noticeable difference between maybe the front of the soundstage and the back of the soundstage. So you could say that is a more three-dimensional sound. Then there is more clarity and focus to everything because there is more space and openness. So the treble separates itself more from the mid-range and the vocals from the bass and so on. And the bass is more of an underpinning to the music rather than a weight that is sitting on or really on top of the music. And to me, that is the big one. When you put the MDF platter back on, the sound thickens. It becomes all more solid, but all solid in the middle. And the music, it's all there still, but it's just a bit squashed together with less clarity and less defined organisation. Clearly, it's a better sound with the aluminium platter, a more honest, a more truthful, and I would call it a more high-end sound, definitely more high-end. But there is something to consider here. With the MDF platter, because the sound is kind of more squashed together, it's all a bit thicker, it's all a bit more bloomier. I think the positive of that type of sound is it can come over maybe a bit warmer and a bit bolder because it's all thick and together. And as soon as you separate everything out, as soon as you expose absolutely everything, well then you are exposed to everything. Well then it can sound like maybe a little bit of a leaner sound, but there's definitely not less bass with the aluminium platter compared to the MDF platter. I just think it's a less bloomed, it's a less kind of fat sound. And I have been listening to these changes through a very high quality, high resolution system with the Evo 4 speakers and a Sigsum amplifier. And I think if I was listening to this change through larger speakers that are naturally more bass heavy, well then I think the experience I've had would have been slightly different. I think, tightening up everything, making everything clearer and more focused, and definitely having the bass more underpinning the sound rather than sitting on the sound. And when bass sits on the sound, it congests the soundstage some, but it also can make vocalists sound like they're singing like this, maybe singing through a pair of socks. So again, it's a clear improvement with the aluminium platter. But the reason I said only 90% and not 100%, when really it is 100% improvement, is just to allow 10% for audiophile taste. One other thing that I noticed with the aluminium platter, which actually is quite a big one for me, is that I seem to be less aware of vinyl noise. Yeah, the pops and crackles, they're still there of course, and you can't do anything about dust being on the record or maybe a bad pressing, but that just the vinyl noise that's always there and present within record playing, that, or at least that I've experienced so far, seems less obvious to me. It seems less of a negative distraction to me with the aluminium platter. Not necessarily a night and day difference, but I think because there is more clarity and more focus to everything, the music kind of pops more. It separates itself more from the vinyl noise, and that is a really big improvement for me personally, because coming obviously from a heavy digital background into vinyl playback, again, you long-term vinylistas will be used to this, but it's definitely something that takes a little bit of getting used to as a heavy digital music playback user. But this definitely feels like a right step, or a step in the right direction, combined with some of the other things that I've been doing behind the scenes, such as better record handling, better record cleaning. This is definitely all a step in the right direction for me. And of course, we need to talk costs, as the aluminium platter is not a cheap upgrade at £450. And it's made all in-house by AVID. They buy solid aluminium rod billets and mill them down to the exact size and shape. And they make the MDF platters in-house too, but obviously aluminium is more machine intensive, the raw materials cost more, as does the finish. But I think the Ingenium looks nicer with the aluminium platter, as it's just got a bit more contrast. The black is a bit more black, and I think it better matches the frame for a more stealth-like appearance. And of course, there will be others among you that will be screaming that I should be upgrading the cartridge and maybe the arm before changing the platter. And I know that is the most common logic, that the cartridge is everything, and I can't argue with that at the moment because I don't know any difference. And to explain my logic, I am following the designed AVID upgrade path for the Ingenium, and I am trusting them in their explanation that a really good turntable will separate and isolate the bad vibrations away from the record, so that a lesser cartridge will sound more optimal, will sound more at its maximum. Whereas if you put a really good quality cartridge on a turntable with bad vibrations, well, then you're obviously going to hear those bad vibrations as well as hearing the music. But with that said, I am now thinking, given the extra sound resolution that the aluminium platter has made to the turntable, and I think this situation is dramatized or increased because of the high resolution nature of this system that I'm listening to, I'm now thinking that the turntable is probably ready. It's probably the right time for me to look to explore cartridges, different cartridges, maybe arms, but probably cartridges first. So that's me going to ask you now, can you recommend any cartridges that I could try with this particular turntable? I think I'll start there and maybe look at tone arms later. So can you recommend a cartridge to me, or maybe a cartridge brand for me to consider that will work on this turntable? Obviously, it has to work on this arm, on this turntable. If you can, I'm sure there's loads of you with great ideas. Yeah, please leave the suggestions down below in the comments section. And I want to finish by saying I am really enjoying this journey. There are still some frustrating parts. One big one being my growing but still limited record collection. And I have bought quite a few records since starting this journey, but it's not easy to build a collection because they are so expensive. So I have to cherry pick what I buy, but then I have to be in the mood to listen to the albums that I've bought. That is quite a contradiction in itself. But Christmas is coming, and I have quite a few records on my presents list, but I am really worried because I'm not sure if I've been a good enough boy to be on the correct list anyway. I think that's probably pretty unlikely. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful and helpful and interesting, really. It's been really an interesting one for me, trying the different platters, because I expected there to be a difference in sound, of course, otherwise the product wouldn't exist, but I wasn't expecting it to be as dramatic as it was. So hopefully that's maybe helped you if you're in a similar situation trying to decide whether a platter upgrade is worth it for you. It's definitely worth testing and trying for yourself. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up, and if you want to see the next stages of my vinyl journey, then of course subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.